She was forced by her family to marry her sister's millionaire fiancé in a coma. Unbelievable happened. The grand chandelier cast a golden glow over the lavish living room, illuminating the tension that hung thick in the air. The heavy silence was only broken by the faint ticking of an antique clock and the quiet, muffled sobs of Vanessa. Elena sat stiffly on the velvet couch, her fingers clutching the fabric of her dress, her heart pounding in her chest. Across from her, her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Sille, stood with their arms crossed, their expressions unreadable. "Vanessa," she cried, wiping away tears with a silk handkerchief. "I can't do it. I just can't." Elena's brows furrowed as she asked cautiously, "Do what?" Though she already had a sinking feeling in her stomach. Her mother exhaled sharply. "Your sister cannot marry Liam Harrington in his condition," she said, her voice clipped and impatient. Elena's body went rigid. Liam Harrington, the millionaire businessman, the perfect fiancé Vanessa had been set to marry, had been involved in a tragic accident 2 months ago. Now he lay in a hospital bed in a coma, unresponsive. "Wait." Elena's voice came out in disbelief. "You mean the wedding is still happening?" Her father scoffed. "Of course it's happening. Do you have any idea how much money is at stake?" Elena's heart pounded harder as she protested. "But Vanessa doesn't have to go through with it." Her mother continued, "Because you will." The words hit her like a slap. Elena shot to her feet, incredulous. "What? No. That's insane." Vanessa sobbed louder. "Don't you understand, Elena? I can't marry a man who might never wake up. I'm only 24. My whole life would be ruined." Elena turned to her parents in disbelief. "And you think I should?" Her father's jaw tightened. "It's not about what we think, Elena. It's about survival. The Harrington family is powerful. This marriage is the only thing keeping them from pulling out of our business deal. If they do, we will lose everything." Her mother's cold eyes met hers. "You wouldn't want to ruin your family, would you?" Elena's throat tightened. "This isn't fair. Life isn't fair, sweetheart. But at least this way, you'd be useful for once." Elena felt the sting of her sister's words. She had always been the forgotten daughter, the one who lived in Vanessa's shadow, the one never good enough. Now, they wanted to throw her away like a pawn. She wanted to scream, to refuse, to run, but she knew better. Her father wasn't bluffing. She had seen the financial reports. The Sinclair family was drowning in debt. Their company barely survived. If the Harringtons backed out, it would be the end. She swallowed hard. "If I do this," she said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, "what happens to me after?" Her mother's lips curled into a small, satisfied smile. "You will be Miss Harrington. You will live comfortably for the rest of your life. But what if he never wakes up?" Her father waved a dismissive hand. "Then you live as a widow in a few years, and no one will question it." Elena clenched her fists. This was her life they were deciding, her future, and she had no choice. "Fine," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll do it." The Sinclair estate was decorated like a fairy tale, with white roses cascading from chandeliers and golden embellishments everywhere. Guests whispered as they took their seats, confusion evident on their faces. Everyone knew Liam Harrington was in a coma, yet the wedding was happening. Elena stood at the altar, dressed in an elegant yet cold white gown, her hands trembling as she held her bouquet, her stomach in knots. Instead of a groom standing beside her, there was a nurse ready to sign the marriage documents as Liam's medical representative. The officiant's voice echoed through the grand hall. "Do you, Elena Sinclair, take Liam Harrington to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Her breath hitched. She turned slightly, glancing at Vanessa, who sat in the front row, completely unbothered, her attention already shifting to a handsome man beside her. No doubt a new lover. This wasn't supposed to be her life, and yet she forced herself to speak the words. "I do." The officiant nodded. "With the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The words fell hollow. There was no kiss, no celebration, just the sound of a pen scratching against the marriage certificate as Elena signed her name, binding herself to a man who wasn't even awake. As she looked down at the paper with the name Elena Harrington, a single tear slipped down her cheek. This wasn't a wedding. It was a sentence, a life she never chose, a marriage to a ghost. The Harrington estate was breathtaking, an architectural masterpiece with towering marble pillars, sprawling gardens, and a view that stretched over the city skyline. It was a place of wealth, power, and prestige. Yet to Elena, it felt cold and unwelcoming. As she stepped into the grand foyer on her first day as Mrs. Harrington, she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. The staff lined up to greet her, their faces unreadable. Some murmured polite greetings, while others exchanged knowing glances, whispers trailing behind them. Look at her, marrying a man in a coma, just for his fortune. She's nothing but an opportunist. She won't last here. Elena ignored them. She wasn't there for money. She was there because she had no choice. If she was going to survive in this world, she needed to prove that she was more than just a woman who had married a millionaire on his deathbed. Liam's bedroom was enormous, too big, too empty, too silent. The only sound was the soft beep of the machines monitoring his condition. Elena stood by his bedside, looking at the man who was now legally her husband. He was handsome, even in sleep, with dark hair, a sharp jawline, and broad shoulders. But there was something heartbreaking about seeing him like this, trapped in a world between life and death. She slowly reached out, hesitating before gently placing her hand over his. His skin was warm but unresponsive. I don't know if you can hear me, she whispered, but I'm Elena, your wife. The word felt foreign on her tongue. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to continue. I don't belong here, and I'm sure if you were awake, you wouldn't want me here either. But until you wake up, I'll take care of you. And she meant it. Despite the circumstances, she wouldn't abandon him. So every morning, she sat by his bedside, reading to him from the books on his shelves. She adjusted his pillows, made sure his nurses followed the correct routines, and even brought fresh flowers into his room to make it feel less lifeless. Slowly, the whispers in the mansion began to change. She actually takes care of him. I thought she was just waiting for him to die. Maybe she's not as heartless as we thought. One evening, while searching for a book in the mansion's vast library, Elena stumbled upon a locked drawer in Liam's study. Curiosity gnawed at her. She looked around, making sure no one was watching, before carefully picking the lock with a hairpin. The drawer slid open with a soft click, revealing a folder filled with documents and photos. Her breath hitched as she pulled them out. It was a report on Liam's accident, but something was off. The official records said it had been a car crash, an unfortunate tragedy, but these documents suggested otherwise. The brakes on Liam's car had been tampered with. Someone had wanted him dead. Elena's grip tightened on the papers, her heart racing. This wasn't just an accident. It was an attempted murder. The worst part was that the suspect list was short because the only people who had access to Liam's car were his closest family and friends. That meant someone in this very house wanted him gone. The rain tapped gently against the windows of Liam's bedroom, filling the silence with a rhythmic, almost comforting sound. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast warm light over the room where Elena sat curled up in a chair beside Liam's bed, reading aloud. It had become a routine. Every evening, she would sit there, reading to him as if her voice could somehow reach into the void where he was trapped. Tonight, she was reading The Great Gatsby, one of the books she had found on his bookshelf. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past, she sighed, closing the book. I wonder if you ever liked this story, she murmured, glancing at Liam's still face. His breathing was steady and unchanged. His dark lashes rested against his skin, his features frozen in an expression of deep sleep. Elena reached for the glass of water on the nightstand, but as she did, something caught her eye. Her breath stalled. His finger moved, just a small twitch, barely noticeable. She blinked, her heart pounding. Had she imagined it? Holding her breath, she leaned in, watching intently. Nothing, silence. Maybe it had been a trick of the light. Perhaps she was so desperate for change that she was seeing things. Shaking her head, she exhaled and stood up. Good night, Liam, she whispered, brushing her fingers lightly over his hand before leaving the room. What she didn't see was his finger twitch again the next day. Elena couldn't shake the feeling that what she had seen was real. By nightfall, she got her answer. As she sat beside him again, reading in the dim glow of the lamp, she noticed it, his hand moving ever so slightly. Then, the next morning, as she adjusted his blanket, his eyelids fluttered for a fraction of a second. It was happening. Something was changing. She immediately called the doctor. Dr. Whitmore, Liam's personal physician, arrived within the hour, his expression unreadable as he checked Liam's vitals, tested his reflexes, and examined his condition. Elena stood by anxiously, her hands clasped tightly together. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Whitmore straightened and turned to her. "You were right," he said. "His neurological activity is increasing. His body is responding." Elena's heart leaped. "What does that mean, he'll wake up?" The doctor nodded. "It's impossible to say exactly when, but yes, he's improving. He could regain consciousness at any time now." Elena felt relief flood through her. But her relief was short-lived because news of Liam's possible recovery didn't stay quiet for long. When Vanessa heard about it, she came running back. It started with a phone call. Elena was in Liam's room, adjusting the fresh flowers by his bed when her phone buzzed. She frowned at the name flashing on the screen. "Vanessa," she answered hesitantly. "Hello, Elena." Vanessa's voice was unnaturally cheerful. "I just heard the most wonderful news. Liam might wake up soon." Elena's fingers tightened around the phone. "How did you?" "Oh, don't be silly, darling. News like this spreads. And as his fiancé, I had to call you," Vanessa said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Elena's stomach twisted. "Fiancé? He's my husband now, Vanessa," she said, her voice firm. Vanessa laughed lightly. "Oh, sweetie, let's not get caught up in technicalities. We both know the only reason you married him was because you had no choice. But now that he's waking up," Elena's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying don't get too comfortable," Vanessa purred. "Because once Liam wakes up and sees who should really be by his side, this little fairy tale of yours will be over." The line went dead. Elena slowly lowered the phone, her heart racing. She had fought to protect Liam when he was unconscious, but now she would have to fight even harder because Vanessa was coming back, and she would do anything to reclaim what she thought was hers. Elena stirred at the faint sound of shifting sheets. She had fallen asleep in the chair next to Liam's bed, as she had done every night since their strange, unwanted marriage. The room was still bathed in the soft hues of early morning light, the air thick with the scent of fresh flowers and the faint sterile aroma of antiseptic. For a moment, she thought she had imagined the sound, and then it came again, a voice rough from months of silence but undeniably real. "Who are you?" Elena's eyes flew open, her breath catching in her throat. Liam was awake, his deep blue eyes, once so lifeless, now staring directly at her. Her heart pounded. "You," she whispered, scrambling to her feet. "You're awake." Liam frowned, his gaze flickering with confusion as he scanned the unfamiliar room. His body tensed beneath the covers as he locked eyes with her once more. "I don't know you," he said. The words were like a knife to her chest. "Liam," she tried again, her voice shaking slightly. "It's me. I'm Elena." His frown deepened, and frustration washed over his features. "I don't remember anything." Elena's stomach twisted. This wasn't just disorientation. He had lost his memory. He didn't remember her, didn't remember their marriage, didn't remember who he could trust. Doctors arrived soon after, confirming what Elena already feared. Liam had suffered retrograde amnesia. His long-term memory was damaged. While he could remember basic knowledge and skills, his personal life was a complete blank. He didn't recognize the house staff, his own reflection in the mirror, or the ring on his finger. Worst of all, he didn't recognize her. Elena sat silently in the corner of the room as the doctor explained everything to Liam in careful, clinical terms. Liam barely reacted, his face stoic and unreadable, but Elena could see the tension in his posture, the way his hands clenched beneath the blankets. He was processing it all, trying to make sense of the void where his past should have been. Before anyone could say more, the door burst open. "Liam," the sharp, honeyed voice made Elena's blood run cold. She turned just in time to see Vanessa rushing toward the bed, tears glistening in her eyes. Her designer heels clicked against the marble floor. Elena barely had time to react before Vanessa threw herself at Liam, wrapping her arms around him in a dramatic embrace. Liam, oh my God, I was so worried, she sobbed into his shoulder. I thought I lost you forever. Liam tensed under the sudden contact, blinking in confusion. His arms remained stiff at his sides. I don't. Vanessa pulled back just enough to cup his face in her hands, her fake concern shining in her eyes. It's okay, she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. The doctor said you don't remember, but I'm here now. Elena felt sick. Liam's brow furrowed. Who are you? Vanessa gasped, clutching her chest as if he had just stabbed her. Liam, don't say that, she whimpered. It's me, Vanessa. Elena gritted her teeth. Vanessa was lying, but Liam didn't know that, and right now, he had no reason not to believe her. The room soon filled with Liam's family, his parents and closest relatives, speaking over one another, showering him with affection, relief, and subtle reminders of their status in his life. Yet not one of them acknowledged Elena. She stood there, a silent observer, completely ignored as if she were nothing more than a nurse or a stranger who happened to be in the room. Finally, it was Liam's mother, Margaret Harrington, who turned to face Elena. It's good of you to have stayed with Liam through all this, she said, her gaze sharp and assessing. But now that he's awake, we won't need you anymore. The implication was clear. Elena wasn't part of this family. She wasn't important. She wasn't his wife in their eyes. Elena swallowed the lump in her throat. I am his wife, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. That hasn't changed, Margaret replied, a small dismissive smile curling her lips. We'll see about that. Later that night, as Liam sat in his bed processing everything, Vanessa sat beside him, stroking his hand gently. Liam, she whispered, I know all of this is confusing, but just trust me, okay? He hesitated, and Vanessa leaned in, her voice dropping to a soft, manipulative murmur. I've always been by your side, she continued. I was your fiancé before the accident, and I've been waiting for you ever since. Elena, who stood by the doorway, clenched her fists. Liar, she thought. Vanessa had abandoned him the moment she thought he was useless to her, and now she wanted to reclaim him again, now that he was awake, wealthy, and powerful. Elena knew she should walk away. She had done her part. She could leave. But she glanced at Liam, at the confusion and uncertainty flickering in his stormy blue eyes. She had seen him through his worst, cared for him when no one else had. Now, when he needed the truth the most, she couldn't just leave him in the hands of a liar. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Liam, she said firmly. Both he and Vanessa turned to face her. Elena met his gaze, strong and unwavering. I am your wife, she declared, and whether you remember me or not, I'm not leaving you. Vanessa's smile stiffened, but Elena didn't care. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, she was going to fight. Vanessa was relentless from the moment Liam woke up. She made it her mission to erase Elena from his life. Every morning, she arrived at the Harrington estate dressed in flawless designer outfits, her perfume filling the air as she flounced into Liam's room with a dazzling smile. Liam, we were so in love, she would sigh, her fingers grazing his wrist. Do you really not remember our trips to Paris? The way you used to hold me and say you couldn't imagine life without me? Liam frowned, his brows furrowing in frustration. I don't remember. Vanessa's expression fell, but only for a second. She quickly replaced it with a look of gentle patience, tilting her head as she stroked his arm. It's okay, she said sweetly. We have all the time in the world to get back to what we had. Elena, standing by the door, felt sick. Every word out of Vanessa's mouth was a lie. Liam had never been that affectionate with her. Their relationship had been more of a business arrangement than a love story. But now, with his mind wiped clean, Vanessa was weaving a new narrative, one that suited her. And the worst part was that Liam had no reason not to believe her. Despite everything, Elena refused to abandon him. She didn't push. She didn't demand. Instead, she stayed, helping him through the long, frustrating days of physical therapy, standing beside him as he struggled to regain his strength. She read to him, her voice steady and calm, bringing pieces of the world to him when he couldn't yet step outside. At night, when the house was quiet and the weight of his missing memories became too much, she simply sat with him, offering her silent presence as comfort. One evening, as she placed a warm towel on his arm after a long session of stretching, Liam suddenly spoke. "You don't talk much about the past," he murmured, watching her carefully. Elena stilled as she met his gaze, unsure of how much she should say. Finally, she exhaled. "I don't think the past is what matters," she said softly. "What matters is who you are now and where you go from here." Liam studied her, something unreadable in his expression, and then to her surprise, he smiled. A small, genuine smile, the first she had seen since he woke up. Days turned into weeks, and something shifted between them. Liam started looking for her when she wasn't in the room. He asked about her day, noticed the little things, how she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, how she hummed softly when she read, how her hands trembled when she was upset, yet she always held herself together. One evening, as she helped him into bed, he caught her wrist before she could step away. "Stay," he murmured, his voice hoarse. Elena hesitated. "Liam, I don't know why," he admitted, looking into her eyes, searching for something he didn't understand. "But when you're here, it doesn't feel so empty." Elena's breath hitched. Even if he didn't remember their past, his heart was starting to recognize her anyway, and that meant that Vanessa was losing. As the days passed, it became increasingly clear that Vanessa was desperate. One morning, as Elena was helping Liam adjust his cane, Vanessa stormed in, her face twisted with anger. "This has gone on long enough," she snapped. "Liam, she's manipulating you." Liam frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa crossed her arms, her tone sharp. "You don't remember, so let me tell you. This woman doesn't love you. She was forced into marrying you for money. She didn't even want you." Silence fell over the room. Elena's fingers curled into fists, but she didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. Liam was looking at her, not with doubt, but with thoughtfulness. After a long pause, he turned back to Vanessa and said, "Then why is she still here?" Vanessa's lips parted in shock. Liam continued, his voice calm but firm. "If she was only here for money, why hasn't she left now that I'm away?" Vanessa had no answer. Deep down, she knew Liam was starting to see the truth for himself, and she was losing him all over again. Elena's mind raced with thoughts of the accident. Something about it had never felt right. Liam was an experienced driver. The police report had called it an unfortunate crash, blaming it on faulty brakes. But why hadn't the car been recalled? Why hadn't Liam's team, who regularly maintained his vehicles, noticed anything wrong? Most importantly, who had benefited the most from his coma? The more she thought about it, the more one name kept coming back to her: Vanessa. Deep down, Elena knew this wasn't just an accident. Someone had wanted Liam dead, and it was time to find out who. Elena started digging late at night when the house was quiet. She searched through old security footage, accident reports, and financial records. Then she found it: a suspicious transaction made just days before Liam's accident. A large sum of money had been transferred from an anonymous account to a mechanic's shop, the same shop that had last serviced Liam's car. Her heart raced. She had to go there the next day. When she arrived at the small auto shop on the outskirts of town, the place smelled of grease and burning metal. The man behind the counter barely looked up when she entered. "I need to ask about a car that was serviced here a few months ago," Elena said, keeping her voice steady. The man finally looked at her, his eyes narrowing. "What car?" "Liam Harrington's," she stated. The man stiffened for a moment, hesitated, then shook his head. "I don't know anything about that." Elena pulled out her phone, showing him a screenshot of the mysterious payment. "Then maybe you can explain this?" The man paled. Elena stepped closer. "Someone paid you to tamper with his brakes, didn't they?" His jaw tightened. "Look, lady, I don't want any trouble. Tell me who paid you," she pressed, "or I go to the police." The mechanic exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "I don't know their name," he muttered. "All I know is that a woman came in, blonde, expensive looking, said she wanted the job done quietly." Elena's blood ran cold. There was only one person who fit that description. That evening, Elena returned to the Harrington estate, her mind spinning. Vanessa had tried to kill Liam, and now she was here, pretending to be his loving fiancé, hoping to reclaim him now that he was away. She found Vanessa in the garden, sipping wine as if she had no care in the world. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, but for Elena, the beauty of the evening was overshadowed by the rage building inside her. She marched up to her sister, gripping the evidence in her hand. "You did it, didn't you?" Elena hissed. Vanessa barely spared her a glance. "Did what, darling?" Elena slammed the papers onto the table. "You paid someone to sabotage Liam's car." Vanessa's wine glass paused midair. For a moment, there was silence. Then slowly, she set her glass down and leaned back in her chair, a small, amused smile playing on her lips. "So," she mused, "you finally figured it out." Elena's stomach twisted. "You're not even going to deny it?" Vanessa chuckled, swirling her wine lazily. "Why should I? It's not like you can do anything about it." Elena's fists clenched. "You try to kill him." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "Oh, please, if I want him dead, he would be dead." A coma? Now that was useful. It got him out of the way, at least for a while. Elena's chest burned with fury. "You're a monster." Vanessa smirked. "No, darling, I'm a realist." "And you?" She leaned forward, her eyes dark and calculating. "You think you can change how this story ends?" Elena's breath hitched. Vanessa wasn't just dangerous. She was ruthless. If she had already tried to kill Liam once, there was nothing stopping her from trying again. Elena had one choice. She had to protect him at all costs. The storm raged outside the Harrington estate, rain hammering against the massive windows, thunder growling in the distance. The flickering glow of the fireplace cast long shadows across the room where Liam sat, staring into the flames. His mind was clouded with fragments just out of reach. His headaches had been growing worse ever since waking up. There had been moments, flashes of something familiar yet foreign. A voice, a touch, a warmth that made his chest tighten. And tonight, as the storm howled, those fragments finally came together. It started with a sudden piercing pain in his head. He groaned, gripping his temples as his vision blurred. Then memories flooded back. The road had been wet. The city lights blurred through the windshield. Then the brakes failed, the wheel had locked, the car spun, and just before the world turned black, he had seen something, someone standing at a distance. A woman, blonde hair, a sharp, satisfied smile. Vanessa. And then, after the accident, Elena, sitting beside his bed, whispering to him in the dark, holding his hand, reading to him, loving him. Liam's eyes snapped open, his breath coming in short gasps. It all made sense now. The accident wasn't an accident. Vanessa had lied to him, manipulated him, and the woman he had been unknowingly falling for all over again had been his wife all along. He needed to find Elena. Downstairs, Vanessa stood in the grand hall, sipping wine, still basking in her victory. Elena had confronted her, and what had happened? Nothing, because power belonged to those who knew how to play the game, and Vanessa had always played it better. But then Liam's voice sliced through the silence. "Vanessa." She turned, startled. Liam stood at the top of the grand staircase, his eyes locked onto hers, sharp and cold. Something about him was different, stronger, clearer. Her fingers tightened around the glass. "Liam, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice sweet. He took slow steps down the stairs, his jaw clenched, his movements controlled. "I remember everything." Vanessa's blood froze. Liam kept walking toward her. "I remember the crash. I remember the brakes being tampered with. I remember you watching from a distance as I nearly died." Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "Liam, you're confused," she said, her eyes wide. "No," he replied. "I was confused, but not anymore." He turned to the assembled guests, his family, the estate staff, even his parents who had arrived earlier that evening. With a voice sharp as a blade, he declared, "Vanessa tried to kill me." Gasps rippled through the room. Vanessa laughed, but it was strained. "You don't have proof," she said quickly. Liam's lips curled. "Actually, we do." Elena stepped forward, holding a folder of evidence. The mechanic's confession, the bank records, the security footage. Vanessa's face twisted in horror. "You." Liam's voice was ice cold. "She is no longer welcome in this house." His father, who had always adored Vanessa, stood in stunned silence. But his mother, Margaret, narrowed her eyes in cold disapproval. "Vanessa," she said, her voice sharp, "you have embarrassed this family for the last time. Leave now." Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Liam, but his expression was steel. There was nothing left for her here. With one last glare at Elena, Vanessa stormed out of the estate, disgraced, defeated, and utterly alone. The room fell silent as the storm continued to rage outside. Elena stood still, watching Vanessa disappear, but her heart was pounding for a different reason now. Liam turned to her. For the first time, without hesitation, he reached for her hand. She gasped softly, but he held it tightly, as if he were afraid to let go again. "I remember, Elena," he murmured, his voice raw. Her eyes filled with uncertainty, hope, and disbelief. "You do?" His gaze softened. "I remember everything." He exhaled, his grip tightening. "And I remember that I never truly saw you before." Elena swallowed hard. Liam took another step closer. "But now I do," he whispered. "I see you. I see the woman who never left my side. The woman who saved me." A shiver ran through her as his fingers brushed her cheek. "And God help me," he murmured, his voice filled with something deeper, something certain. "I love you, Elena." Tears spilled down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from overwhelming joy. For the first time since this nightmare began, she had finally won his heart. The morning after Vanessa's disgraceful departure, the Harrington estate felt different, lighter, brighter. For the first time in months, there was no tension in the air, no whispers of betrayal, no manipulations lurking behind honeyed words. Vanessa was gone, and in her absence, Elena could finally breathe. She stood on the balcony overlooking the vast gardens, bathed in the soft, golden light of sunrise. The crisp morning air carried the scent of blooming roses, a symbol of something new, something beautiful, something earned. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned just as Liam stepped into view. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. No barriers, no confusion, no past wounds hanging between them. Just them. "You're up early," Liam murmured, his voice warm. Elena smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep. Too much to think about." He nodded, stepping closer. "Like what happens next?" Liam's gaze never wavered. "Next," he echoed. Then, without another word, he reached into his pocket. Elena's breath caught as he slowly pulled out a small velvet box. "Liam," he took a deep breath. Then in a deliberate, steady motion, he sank down on one knee. Elena gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Liam smiled up at her, his blue eyes filled with certainty, devotion, and love. "I know we were already married," he murmured, "but that was never our choice. It was never our moment." His fingers brushed over the ring as he looked at her with everything he felt but had never been able to say before. "This time, I want to do it right," he said softly. "No contracts, no pressure. Just me asking the woman I love to be my wife." Elena felt tears spill down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from overwhelming joy. She dropped to her knees in front of him, laughing through her tears as she whispered, "Yes." The second wedding was nothing like the first. There were no whispered deals, no reluctant tears, no sense of duty. This time, love was at the heart of it all. The Harrington family, who had once treated Elena like an outsider, now welcomed her with open arms. Even Liam's mother, who had once doubted her, pulled her aside before the ceremony and gently squeezed her hands. "I misjudged you," Margaret admitted, her gaze softer than Elena had ever seen. "But you saved my son. You stood by him when none of us did. And for that, you have my deepest respect." Elena blinked back emotion and nodded. "Thank you." Then at last it was time. Elena stood at the end of the aisle, her heart racing, her hands trembling as she clutched her bouquet. At the altar, waiting for her was Liam. This time, he was awake, smiling, waiting for her. As she walked toward him, she felt everything in her life, the pain, the betrayals, the loneliness, fade away. Because this was real. When she reached him, Liam took her hands, his grip firm, steady, and unwavering. "You look breathtaking," he whispered. Elena smiled through her happy tears. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with warmth and the love they had fought for. And when Liam leaned in, pressing his forehead against hers before finally capturing her lips in a tender, soul-deep kiss, the entire world seemed to fall away. This was the beginning of their true forever. That night, after the reception, Liam and Elena stood together under the stars, the quiet hum of the estate settling around them. Liam reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "You changed my life, Elena," he murmured. "You saved me in ways I can never repay." Elena smiled, leaning into him. "You don't have to repay me," she whispered. "Just stay with me." Liam exhaled, his grip tightening. "Always." Then, softly, he whispered the words that made her heart melt. "Thank you for never giving up on me." And as they stood there, wrapped in love, wrapped in the future they had chosen together, Elena knew she was finally home. Home, as Liam and Elena embraced under the stars. Their journey proved a powerful truth. Real love is not about how a story begins, but how two hearts fight to stay together. Elena, once the forgotten girl, became the woman cherished and adored. Liam, once lost in darkness, found his light in her unwavering love. And Vanessa learned that lies and betrayal would always lead to downfall, because in the end, kindness, loyalty, and true love would always triumph. As the days turned into weeks, life at the Harrington estate settled into a new rhythm. Elena found herself fully immersed in her role, not just as Liam's wife, but as a woman who had fought through adversity to reclaim her place in the world. The whispers that once surrounded her began to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging that she had longed for. Liam continued to recover, his strength returning day by day. With each passing moment, he became more aware of his surroundings, and the fog of confusion that had shrouded his mind slowly lifted. Elena remained steadfast by his side, supporting him through his physical therapy, always encouraging him to take one more step, to push a little harder. One afternoon, as they sat together in the garden, Elena watched the sunlight filter through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on Liam's face. "You've come so far," she said softly, her heart swelling with pride. Liam looked at her, his expression filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied, his voice sincere. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Elena smiled, but deep down, she felt a twinge of fear. She wanted to believe that their love could withstand anything, but the shadows of the past still lingered, threatening to resurface at any moment. As Liam's memory slowly returned, the pieces of his life began to fall into place. His family, his business, and the people who surrounded him. Yet, there was one memory that remained elusive, the details of the accident. Elena had kept the truth about Vanessa's betrayal hidden, fearing that revealing the darker aspects of their past would drive a wedge between them. But as she saw Liam grow stronger, she knew it was time to confront the truth. One evening, after a long day of therapy, they sat together in the cozy living room, the soft glow of the fireplace illuminating their faces. "Liam," Elena began, her voice steady but laced with tension, "there's something we need to talk about." He looked at her, curiosity etched on his features. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her heart racing. "It's about the accident and Vanessa." Liam's expression shifted, a shadow passing over his face. "What about her?" Elena reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "I wanted to protect you from the pain of it all, but you deserve to know the truth." She proceeded to recount the events leading up to the accident, the suspicious transactions, the mechanic's confession, and the evidence that had emerged. As she spoke, she could see the tension building in Liam's posture, his jaw tightening with each revelation. "Vanessa, she wanted you out of the way," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She tried to kill you, Liam." Silence enveloped them, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. Liam's eyes widened, disbelief mingling with anger. Why would she do that? Elena took a moment to gather her thoughts. Because she thought she could reclaim everything she had lost. She wanted to control her life, your life, and she was willing to do anything to get it back. Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustration mounting. And I was just a pawn in her game? Elena nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I couldn't let you go on living without knowing the truth. You deserve to see her for what she really is. Liam's expression hardened as the realization settled in. I can't believe I let her manipulate me like that. Elena squeezed his hand, her heart aching for both of them. You weren't yourself, Liam. You were trapped in a nightmare, and she took advantage of that. He drew in a deep breath, his gaze steadying as he looked into her eyes. Thank you for being honest with me, for fighting for me. Their connection deepened in that moment, and Elena felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, Liam continued to recover, both physically and mentally. He began to regain his confidence, and with it, a determination to reclaim his life. One sunny afternoon, they strolled through the sprawling gardens, the vibrant flowers blooming around them. I want to make things right with everyone, Liam said, his voice firm. I want to face my family and tell them what happened. Elena smiled, her heart swelling with pride. You're ready, Liam. You've grown so much. He paused, turning to her with a serious expression. And I want to make sure Vanessa can't hurt anyone else. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. Elena nodded in agreement, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. We'll do it together. Later that week, they arranged a meeting with Liam's family, his mother, father, and closest relatives. As they gathered in the grand sitting room, Elena felt the tension in the air. Liam, I'm so glad you're back, his mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. I need to talk to all of you, Liam replied, his tone steady, about what happened before the accident. As he recounted the events, Elena watched as disbelief and anger washed over their faces. Liam's father clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. That's unacceptable. We can't let her get away with this. I want to make sure she pays for what she did, Liam said, his voice filled with conviction. No one should have to suffer because of her greed. Elena felt a sense of strength radiating from him, and she knew they were on the right path. In the days that followed, they worked with authorities to hold Vanessa accountable for her actions. It was a difficult process, but with each step, Liam felt more empowered, more in control of his life. Elena stood by his side, unwavering in her support. They were a team, facing the world together, and as they navigated the complexities of the legal process, their bond only grew stronger. Finally, the day of Vanessa's reckoning arrived. As they entered the courtroom, Elena felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. But Liam took her hand, offering a reassuring squeeze. I'll be okay, he said, his eyes steady. The trial was intense, and Vanessa put up a fight, trying to manipulate the narrative in her favor. But the evidence was overwhelming, and one by one, witnesses came forward corroborating Liam's story. When it was Elena's turn to testify, she took a deep breath, her heart racing. She shared her experience, the truth of what had happened, and how Vanessa had betrayed not just Liam, but the entire family. As she spoke, she could see the disbelief in Vanessa's eyes, the fear creeping in as the reality of her actions sunk in. Your Honor, Elena concluded, her voice steady. Vanessa Harrington put my husband's life in danger for her own selfish desires. She needs to be held accountable for her actions. The verdict came swiftly. Vanessa was found guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy, and as she was led away in handcuffs, a sense of relief washed over Liam and Elena. They had faced the darkness together and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, as they stood outside the courthouse, the sun shining brightly above them, Liam turned to Elena, a smile breaking across his face. We did it. Elena laughed, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Yes, we did. They embraced tightly, feeling the weight of the past lift from their shoulders. From that day forward, they knew they could face anything together. Their love had not only survived the storm, it had flourished, growing deeper and more resilient than ever before. With each new day, they embraced the future with open hearts, ready to write the next chapter of their lives together, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a beautiful tomorrow. As the sun rose over the Harrington estate, The world outside seemed to bloom anew, reflecting the changes that had taken place within. Elena stood on the balcony, her heart light as she watched the vibrant colors of dawn spill across the horizon. Each day felt like a fresh start, a testament to the strength she and Liam had found together. The aftermath of the trial had brought a sense of closure, but it was also a time for new beginnings. With Vanessa no longer a threat, Liam was ready to fully embrace his life, and Elena was determined to support him every step of the way. They had come through the storm, and now it was time to rebuild. Elena turned to find Liam approaching, a warm smile spreading across his face as he joined her on the balcony. "Good morning," he said, his voice filled with affection. "Good morning," she replied, returning his smile. "Ready for a new day?" "More than ready," he said, leaning against the railing beside her. "I've been thinking, with everything that's happened, I want to make sure we create a life together that reflects who we truly are." Elena felt her heart flutter at his words. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to travel, explore the world with you," Liam said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "There's so much out there we haven't seen, and I want to experience it all together." Elena's heart swelled with joy. "That sounds amazing. I've always wanted to see the world, to experience new cultures and adventures. With you, it sounds perfect." Liam took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Let's start planning our first trip. I want us to make memories that will last a lifetime." As they spoke, the weight of the past seemed to lift completely. They were ready to embrace the future, hand in hand, with hope and love guiding their way. In the weeks that followed, they set off on their first adventure, a trip to Italy. The moment they arrived, the beauty of the landscape took their breath away. The rolling hills, the charming villages, and the rich history surrounding them made for the perfect backdrop to their blossoming romance. Each day was filled with laughter and exploration, from wandering through the cobblestone streets of Florence to savoring gelato under the Tuscan sun. They visited art galleries, admired the masterpieces of the Renaissance, and shared quiet moments over candlelit dinners, discussing their dreams and aspirations. One evening, as they watched the sunset over the Amalfi Coast, the sky ablaze with hues of orange and pink, Liam turned to Elena, his expression serious yet tender. "I want to make this moment last forever," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's heart raced. "What do you mean?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, his hands trembling slightly. "Elena, you've shown me what it means to truly live and love. You've been my rock, my light in the darkness. I can't imagine my life without you." With that, he knelt down on one knee, opening the box to reveal a sparkling diamond ring. "Will you marry me, this time for real? No pressure, no manipulation, just the two of us, choosing each other wholeheartedly." Tears of joy filled Elena's eyes as she gasped. "Yes, yes, of course I will." Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, and in that moment, the world around them faded away. They were enveloped in a cocoon of love and happiness, the promise of their future stretching out before them like the endless horizon. As they embraced, the sun dipped below the sea, casting a golden glow around them. It was a moment of pure magic, a culmination of everything they had fought for and everything they dreamed of becoming. Returning home after their travels, they began planning their wedding, a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. The Harrington estate transformed into a place of joy and laughter, filled with friends and family who had come together to witness their union. On the day of the wedding, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the garden as guests took their seats among the blooming flowers. Elena stood at the end of the aisle, her heart racing as she looked at Liam, who stood waiting for her at the altar, his face radiating love and anticipation. As she walked toward him, the world fell silent, and all that mattered was the bond they shared. When they reached each other, Liam took her hands, his grip strong and reassuring. "You look breathtaking," he whispered, his eyes filled with admiration. Elena smiled, a mix of happiness and relief washing over her. "And you look perfect." The ceremony was filled with heartfelt vows, laughter, and tears of joy. They promised to support each other, to cherish each moment, and to face whatever challenges life would bring together. When it came time to exchange rings, Elena felt a rush of emotions as she placed the band on Liam's finger, and he did the same for her. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the crowd erupted into applause, celebrating the love that had triumphed over adversity. In the days that followed, Elena and Liam settled into their new life as a married couple. They embraced their roles not only as partners, but as best friends, exploring their dreams and ambitions together. Elena began to pursue her passion for art, opening a small gallery that showcased local artists, while Liam focused on expanding his business, determined to make it even more successful. They supported each other's endeavors, celebrating the small victories and comforting each other through challenges. As the seasons changed, so did their love, growing deeper and more profound with each passing day. They created a home filled with laughter, warmth, and countless memories, each moment a testament to their commitment and love. On quiet evenings, they would sit together under the stars, reminiscing about their journey and dreaming about the future. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Liam would often say, his arm wrapped around Elena. "It feels like a fairy tale," Elena would reply, her heart full. "But it's our fairy tale, and I wouldn't change a thing." Their love story, once marked by struggle and uncertainty, had transformed into one of hope and resilience. They had found their way back to each other, stronger than ever, ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the end, they learned that real love is not just about the moments of joy, but also about standing together through the storms. And as they walked hand in hand into their future, they knew that nothing could ever tear them apart again.